So we'll continue with Matthew 18 verse 1 to 5, Mark 9 verse 33 to 37, and Luke 9 verse 46 to 48. Now, as we see, there is an argument between the disciples on who is the greatest. Ever since they understood that Jesus is the Messiah, they all want to be the greatest. So they all argue that Peter and Andrew and James and John, they all have their own arguments. Peter will say, out of all the disciples that you have, out of all the disciples, I'm the only one to have been given a name, new name, Cephas. None of you have a new name. Okay. Andrew says, Peter, who brought you to Christ? I brought you. So I'm better. And then James and John will say, you guys are not that good. We are cousins to Christ. His mom and our mom are sisters. So we are better. Matthew says, you left your family business, right? I left my government job and came here. Nathaniel and Thomas will also say, we also left our fishing. We are also not that bad. Judas says, who is the most trustworthy when it comes to money? I'm the greatest. So all these guys have their own reasons to claim greatness. So, to desire being great, is that a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing. How these guys did it is the bad thing. So, to communicate a few things to them. Now, these guys are talking about who is the greatest. Now, they ask Jesus, who then is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? 18 verse 1. Jesus told them, he will tell three things to them. Okay, in these passages, he will tell three things to them. And using a child, he will tell a few things to them. He will take a child and place the child among the disciples and tell them. First thing, chapter 18 verse 3. Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. You guys are talking about greatness, right? First, you make sure that you are in or you are out. If you are in, you can talk about greatness. If you are out, what is the point about talking about greatness? So, unless you turn or change and become like little children. So, how should you become? When Jesus says to them to be like little children, change and become like little children, what does it mean? Okay. Now, a child. For that child, parents have to do everything. There is nothing that a child does independently. Can it eat independently? Can it cook? Can it wash itself? No. Everything the parents have to do, and the child always asks, Daddy, Mommy, do this for me. Can you buy this for me? So, in that behavior, there is no independence. There is always a dependence. Child to parents, there is always a dependence. Okay? These guys are already old. I mean, not that old, but then somewhere in the 30s. 25 to 35, somewhere around all that age. That's where all of these guys are. They're all adults and they think they don't need anyone. The disciples, they don't look at each other and as though they need them. I don't need you. I don't need you. I need this position. So they're loving the position and they don't care about the people around. I don't need you. I don't need you. I am okay by myself. See that? Brothers are also fighting among each other for this. But Childlike dependence. Being childlike means to need others. Just like a child needs others for everything. That attitude should come in order to be in the kingdom of heaven. An unbeliever who doesn't want God shows sinful independence. An unbeliever says, I don't need God for salvation. I don't need God's way for salvation. I will create my own way. But a sinner who depends on God says, I don't have anything else in this world. I only have this to hold on to. That is what childlikeness looks like. Understood? So when these guys are talking about being great in the kingdom of heaven, Jesus says, you can only get into heaven, or you can only get into the kingdom of heaven if you are like this child. Unless you understand your need for salvation, and unless you understand that only God can give you your salvation, you can't even enter heaven. Forget greatness. Okay? So the first thing that Jesus tells to them is, if you need to be in the kingdom of heaven, you need to be like this child. You can't behave the way you are and enter God's kingdom. Because what you're doing right now is sinful independence and using others for your own benefit. Selfish mindset. And then, greatness is there. But what does Jesus say regarding greatness? Okay, sitting down, Jesus called the 12. Now, Mark 9 verse 35, I'm reading. Jesus called the 12 and said, anyone who wants to be the first must be the very last and servant of all. And Luke 9 verse 48, last part. For it is the one who is least among you all who is the greatest. Matthew says, verse 4. Matthew 18 verse 4. Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. In that society, children were not that favored group of society. I mean, nobody wants to spend time with children. There's no use. Because children only take, they don't give anything. See, we all want to spend time with people from whom we can get something. Either knowledge or money or anything. We don't want to be around people with whom we have to give everything. Correct? Because we get tired of that and we just stop. Huh? See, in that act, if people are exploiting us, don't stand and continue being exploited. As I said, God has given us common sense. To lend money to some people for some time is okay. But if you are keeping on lending money and that guy doesn't want to pay you back, use your common sense and stop it right there. When you have to tell no to it, tell no to it. But what I'm trying to tell here is, there are sections within society with whom when you spend time, there is nothing beneficial. And beneficial for us, as in no profit of money and all that. Like, you think about this like that. Okay? That is the neglected part of the society. Now, Jesus is telling seeking greatness is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But how do you do that? It's not like how the world does. The world tells, step on others to be high. Jesus says, go below everyone. You must be willing to be the servant of all. If you want to be great, you should be willing to go to that level. That's total different from what the world says, right? The world says, if you want to be great, you need to have others under you. God says, if you want to be great, you need to be under others. You need to be having the mindset of a servant. You need to be willing to take the lowest position ever. Totally different. These guys are fighting. I mean, later on, these two guys, right? James and John, the sons of Zebedee, they will bring their mother or use their mother to get a position on the left and the right of Jesus. So this is people using others for higher position. Here Jesus says, whoever is the last of all is the first of all. Anyone who wants to be the first must be the very last and the servant of all. Servant attitude of leadership. That's the idea. I mean, if that's how leaders look like, then how many of the so-called leaders are leaders today? Right? Somebody who is willing to be behind the scenes. Somebody who doesn't want to be noticed. Everyone wants to be in the first place of notice. But somebody who doesn't want to be noticed, that guy is the leader. See, that's the difference in how the world thinks of authority and greatness and how God thinks of greatness. So, using the child, Jesus has already mentioned two things. Okay? And the third thing that Jesus says, in Matthew 18 verse 5, and whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. Okay? Mark 9 verse 37, whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me does not welcome only me, that's what it means, but the one who sent me. And Jesus in Luke 9 verse 48, whoever welcomes this little child in my name welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. So, there are three things which Jesus is saying. One, before this, you should be like this child to be in God's kingdom. Second, if you are pursuing greatness, you must be willing to be the last of all. You must be willing to be the servant of all. Third, children, like any other helpless part of the society, they only take from you. They don't give you anything. Understood? Widows, fatherless, children. These groups of people don't have anything to give. They only take. So, the more we know that if we are around such people, they will only take from us. They are the lowest part of the society, so we don't want to associate with them. Okay? But whoever welcomes people who only take, in other words, whoever welcomes people who don't have anything to offer to you. If you're welcoming somebody who has nothing to offer to you, it's the proof that you have welcomed Jesus. See, Jesus came into this world to save sinners, right? What benefit is there in saving us? Do we have anything to give him? He's already perfect. He's already rich. Heavenly riches are all his. So we don't have anything to add to that. Understood? So there is no benefit in God saving us through Christ. But Jesus comes and welcomes us, knowing that we don't have anything to give to him. What do we have? Are good deeds which are bad in God's sight. We have nothing else to give. In spite of knowing that we have nothing else to give, God still welcomes us. Understood? So, knowing that some groups of people have nothing to give to us, welcoming them is the evidence of us having a relationship with Jesus. Jesus welcomed us, who are useless, according to him. Right? When we welcome others who are useless, according to us, what are we no, what are we replicating? We are replicating what Jesus did to us. And whoever welcomes Jesus welcomes the one who sent Jesus. So your attitude towards someone who has nothing to give you is the evidence of whether you belong to Jesus or not. Some people talk with others only when there is chances of money involved. Okay, now let me just give you some examples. How you interact with a waiter in a hotel, because that guy, the waiter is on the lower status of the society in that hotel, right? The owner of the hotel comes first, customers are equal to the owner, and the waiters are below that. How you treat those people, as in a waiter only gives you what you order, right? You pay money for that food, correct? And the waiter, when you give that person some tip, he will be happy, correct? So the waiter doesn't give you tip, you give the waiter the tip. So for you, the waiter is somebody who takes money from you. He doesn't give you anything, you give him. Understood? The watchmen who stand outside the restaurants, they don't give you anything. If somebody gives them, they get it. They take it. Understood? Okay. Or the caterer workers who serve food for you in some weddings or some functions. How you behave with them. That shows how you relate to Jesus. Look at somebody who is of no use to you, financially, socially, or any such matters. How you behave with them. Do you behave with them with a good behavior? Smiling at them. How many customers of a hotel smile at a security? Just think about that. These are real examples that I'm talking about. Okay? Or even a thank you word to somebody who has served you food. How many tell that? Those are things which actually show your spirituality. What you preached in a meeting, it doesn't matter. How you behave in these matters shows your true spirituality. If you are good to a waiter who serves you, if you are good to a security guard, okay, you may not have the money to pay a tip for them, but whatever it is, your good behavior towards them, even when knowing that they have nothing to give you, that is the marker of your relationship with Jesus. Okay, asking them what their name is, where are they from, who's there in their house. Not many customers do that. These are things which you should be focusing on based on this passage. How many of you have seen this like this? You haven't. See, this is where the word has to be applied in these areas of our life. How you deal with your driver, how you uh, deal with some shopkeeper who gave you the wrong item, or how you deal with a waiter who spilt some food on the table. Shouting at them is what everyone does. Oh, it's okay, no problem, relax. That's something what all of them won't do. See, these are places where we show Christian character. Christian character is not just only on Sunday mornings in church. This is also shown in these areas also. Got me? How you behave with somebody who drives your vehicle, or with somebody who is your servant at your home. the way you're politely talking with them. Okay, all of these things matter. So let's move. Let's move to the next passage. Now let's move to uh, before we move to 18 verse 6 of Matthew. We will have one small portion which is found in Mark 9 verse 38 and John. No, not John. Luke 9 verse 49. Mark 9 verse 38 and Luke 9 verse 49. Okay. Now this is John talking. Okay. Let's read. Okay. Can you read Mark 9 verse 38? Okay. Now I'm reading Luke 9 verse 49. Master, said John, we saw someone driving out demons in your name and we tried to stop him because he's not one of us. Now I just want you to notice a few things here. In chapter 9 verse 33 of Mark, there is a division among them. Who is the greatest? Who is the greatest? Division, right? Suddenly these guys have become together. How? When they saw a 13th guy doing miracles. Until this 13th guy did a miracle, these guys were fighting. Have you seen Royal Rumble? Wrestling? In the Royal Rumble, it's every man for himself, right? So every person wants to have a shot at the World Championship match at WrestleMania. So they all fight each other. When a bigger guy comes, what do? They all gang up and put the bigger guy out of the ring, over the top. Correct? Well, that is what happened here. That is what happened here also. There is a 13th person whose name we don't know. So what is he doing? He is driving out demons in Jesus' name. And these 12 who were fighting about being great now came together. And what did they say? What did they say? We told them to we until then it's I. Now it's we. Suddenly we came. We is here. And we told him to stop because he is not one of us. Suddenly that group mentality is coming because the 13th guy is able to do something. And now just imagine this. Remember this. These guys couldn't drive out demons a few passages back. And now the 13th guy is doing it. So why couldn't these guys do it? What did Jesus tell them? Because they didn't have faith and they didn't have prayer. So if this 13th guy is doing these things, what does he have? Faith and prayer. So these guys don't have faith and prayer. This 13th guy has faith and prayer. Okay, and that is why this 13th guy is able to do what he is doing, and these guys don't. These guys can't see the fault that they have. They don't have enough faith to do these things which they were doing once. And now the 13th guy is doing this and they are stopping this guy. Why? Because he's not one among them. So suddenly this us and them mentality, us and him mentality is coming. Okay. So what did Jesus say? Do not stop him. Don't stop him. You guys are not doing anything. Let him do. You guys, it's not possible. You guys, you couldn't drive that demon out. He is doing. Why are you stopping him? നിങ്ങളോ ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല ചെയ്യുന്നവർ ചെയ്യട്ടെ. Well, what does Jesus say? For no one who does a miracle in my name can in the next moment say anything bad about me. Jesus is teaching them one thing here. These disciples have an us him mentality. But Jesus says, if you guys did miracles in my name and you aren't saying anything bad about me, then you can be sure that when he does miracles in my name, he won't say anything bad about me. Understood? Then why are you stopping him from doing that? And then Jesus says one more thing in verse 40. For whoever is not against us is for us. You don't have to see them as enemies. He is not against you. How do you know that? Your master and his master is one. The source of his miracles and your miracles are one. How can he be against you? Did you understand the point that he's trying to make? Okay. For whoever is not against you is for you. So you don't have to see him as your enemy. You have to see him as your co-worker in Christ. Well, that's what sometimes some denominations in Christianity does. Once upon a time, we used to have many converts coming. We used to have a lot of new people coming, and churches were growing. Our churches were growing. I mean, the Brethren and the Pentecostal churches are growing. But now it has come to a point in time where our churches are not growing. It is only shrinking in number. No new believers are coming. Okay? Our teaching quality has gone down. Members' quality has gone down. And what happens when a new church in this town comes who are scripture based, who are gospel centric, and when their number is growing up, we are jealous of them. Their number is growing up. Oh, that should have been our number, man. Why are they doing this? And we do everything to stop them. What the disciples are doing or did, we are also doing in some ways. Oh, in that church there are more people. We should do something. Let me just get you guys. I mean, if you guys are going through that sort of a struggle right now, or if you guys are going through that sort of a thought process right now, I just want to tell you this. Their Jesus and your Jesus. If that is a false teaching, fine. You can do something about it. But if theirs is a good church based on scriptures, they might be different from you. As in, they might not have the name Pentecostal or Brethren. Or they might not be old as you are. Understood? So, in that case, your Jesus and their Jesus is the same. Your gospel and their gospel is the same. If that is true, why are you going against what they are doing? You have failed because you don't have the proper study of scriptures that you should be having. They are having it. Just like the disciples who once did the chasing out of demons now can't do it because they don't have enough prayer and they don't have enough fasting. There is another guy who has both of these things. When he's doing it, why are you stopping him? When they are mission minded, when they are Bible centric, when they are gospel centric, and when you are not, why are you stopping them? He is not your enemy. You are his companion. You and he are in the same city to share the same gospel. You are not his competitor. There is no competition in Christian ministry. Sometimes we want to be above them. That's why we look at them as competition. There's no competition here. In the future, no, when Christ comes back, he doesn't look first for brethren people. Every brother guy doesn't do that. कहाँ है Baptist लोग? कहाँ है Pentecostal लोग? He looks for those who are his. Understood? He looks for those who are his and redeems them and brings them out. Whether they are Baptist or Pentecostal or Presbyterian or Brethren or whatever, those who are his will go to him. Okay? Then let's look at verse 41 now. Truly I tell you, anyone who gives you a cup of water in my name, because you belong to the Messiah, will certainly not lose their reward. Now, some people you look at this verse and say, I only have a cup of water to give. I can only give that much. Or God has commanded me only to give a cup of water to those who are belonging to Jesus. That's not the point of this passage. When these people go to houses, and yeah, and when they come, when they share the gospel to some houses, and when those people love Christ and do something out of that love for Christ to you, that person will not lose their reward. You got me? So what we are trying to understand from here is that the person whom these guys stopped, that person has no enmity with you, and you should also have no enmity with them. Whatever good they do to you because you are a Christian, and whatever good you do to them because they are Christians, will be rewarded by God. That's the point which is being made in here. Okay, so now we saw two things. One, the disciples are fighting with each other. Again, the disciples are fighting within each other. Then the disciples are together are fighting against another person. Now, in both cases, it's bad. Both cases, it is bad. And so, Jesus has a few more things to say to them. Now we'll go back to Matthew 18, verse 6. And its parallel passages are found in Mark 9, verse 42 to 50. Okay. Matthew 18, verse 18, verse 6 to 9. Okay. Yeah. So let's do one thing. Let's read verse 6. Okay. Um, can you read verse 7 and 8 and 9 as well, along with this? Woe to the world. Okay. Okay. So, along with this, you can also read Mark 9, verse 42 to 50. I'm just checking for any parallel passage in Luke. Wait. Yeah, you can read Mark 9, verse 42 to 50. Okay, so I'll spend the next 10 minutes or so to just explain these two passages. Okay, I'll just give you an outline of what these passages are. One, disciples should caution themselves from making others to sin. Second, the disciples must caution themselves from doing sin themselves. Okay, first, the disciples must be careful on not making others to sin. The disciples must be careful not doing sin themselves. Understood? And uh, the remedy that the disciples must do. So, first, if anyone causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and be drowned into the depths of the sea. So, in what context is Jesus saying this? A 13th man is now stopped from doing Jesus' miracles. Okay? So, that is the disciples doing sin to others because of their power hungry attitude. So, what I'm trying to say here is that Jesus is telling them if if any of you are doing something which causes others to fall in faith, you are being in faith, you being in faith, if you are making others fall in faith or doing something which makes others fall in faith, you know what is better for you? To have a large millstone hung around your neck and be drowned into the deepest part of the sea. You know, a millstone is almost uh, a 750 kg thing. Yeah, at that time. So this is one way of executing people. So if somebody was a criminal, one way they executed people was this large. So the person's hand and feet are tied, and a rope with this large stone, okay, is there tied to the neck, and the stone is pushed into the water, into the sea, and this person is dragged. So even if you know swimming, you can't do anything because the stone is just dragging you into the deepest parts of the sea, and you are dying there, and your body doesn't come up. You're dead, completely dead. Huh? Huh. This is that bad. To make a fellow believer sin is so bad that you were better off dying, and like this you die. Why? Because a believer is supposed to lead others into holiness, not lead others into sin. But if somebody is doing that, it is better for that person to leave this world, and in the worst way possible. So these disciples have to know whatever they are doing to this 13th person is so bad. Jesus doesn't accommodate that. He says what you're doing is so bad that you would be better off dying such a worse death. Be careful about that. When you sin against others and when you're leading them to sin, instead of encouraging them, when you're leading others to sin, you are better off dying such a worse death. Even when you die, you are not getting peace. Because do you understand the mind of a person who is drowning? He can't get breath, ശ്വാസം കിട്ടാതെ മരിക്കുന്നത്. बिना सांस लेकर वो मर जा रहा है. And he's struggling in the water. I mean, we are not designed to get our oxygen from the water. Only fishes are doing that. We are designed to get our oxygen from the air. But when we are put in the water and we don't have a chance to come back, that struggle is so much, and we can't survive. That's how bad our death should be if we are leading someone to sin. Somebody who is in Christ. If we are leading that person to sin, this is what we are supposed to think. That's how bad we are. Then, woe to the world because of things that cause people to stumble. Such things must come, but woe to the person through whom such things come. Believers have temptations to sin, but that temptation shouldn't come from fellow believers. Did you understand? The world will tempt us because the world is unregenerate. But, I mean, an unbeliever telling a believer to stop preaching is fine. But a believer telling a believer to stop preaching, it's not fine. Believer telling other believer to go and sin or encouraging the person to sin is not fine. Okay, now coming to the next thing. The first point was that the disciples must be careful in avoiding others or leading others to sin. The second thing, the disciples must be careful in terms of their own sin. That's what you read, If your hand or foot causes you to stumble. Now, okay. Now, if now the temptation comes from within. In the early case, the temptation goes from me to the other person. Now, my temptation comes from within my body. If your hand or foot. In Mark, it says right hand, right? Did we read right hand? No, only hand. Okay. Fine. So, if your hand causes you to stumble, cut it off. If your foot causes you to stumble, cut it off. If your eye causes you to stumble, cut it off. Such important parts of the body. Okay? Hand, foot, and eye. Because without looking, you can't walk, can't go anywhere. You can't see anything. Without your eyes, you can't see anything, you can't go anywhere. Without your foot, you can't go anywhere. Without your hands, you can't do anything. So these are the important parts of the body. And imagine if you're cutting one hand. I mean, if your hand is making you sin, cut it off. Now my question would be, if you cut off one hand, you can sin with the other hand or the other eye or the other foot. So is Jesus asking for a literal cutting off of hands? Is that a hyperbole? In Bible study methods and interpretation, have you heard of this word called hyperbole? Hyperbole. No, you haven't. Okay. Hyperbole is a figure of speech where you are making a overstatement to make an impact. Okay, it's an overstatement made. It's more like, I'll give you an example. Okay, suppose I see a person who has a long beard. So I say that person had this much beard. I haven't seen any person with this much beard. Beard would have been this long, but just to make that thing a little more convincing for you, I exaggerated. This much beard. No person has had that much of a long beard ever. So it's an overstatement here. It's an overstatement, so that's a hyperbole. That's a hyperbole. So cut it off. It doesn't refer to a literal cutting off of your hands. Literally cutting off. What Jesus is trying to say here is, whatever causes you to sin, no matter how dear it is to you, you have to remove it out. Your hands, your foot, and your eyes are so dear to you. Similarly, there are many other things that are so dear to you that makes you to sin. Remove it out of your life. No sentiments on that. Remove those things out of your life. Remove those people out of your life. Now, it could be some friends with whom you hang around. It could be some of your smart devices that you are sinning with. Okay, or it could be some app that makes you sin. Whatever it is, cut it out or remove it out from your life. It could be your laptop, it could be your computer, it could be anything that makes you sin. Remove it out. Why? It is better for you to go live life without that app or without that friend or without that laptop than taking your laptop with you and going to hell, or entertaining that friend and going to hell. Okay, do you want sin or do you want God? If you want God, in whom there is eternal life, you can't carry your sin or the causes of sin with you. You have to leave it. You have to abandon it. Okay, and what is the bad thing about this? What is the bad thing about hell? It's the place where the worms that eat them don't die and the fire is not quenched. Kedatha thiyum chagatha pudum. Now, where did Jesus get this concept from? Isaiah 66 verse 24. That's an Old Testament verse which they have borrowed. We all know the New Testament verse, but we don't know the Old Testament passage from which it came. See, most of the things which Jesus says are Old Testament background things. So know the Old Testament well. Isaiah 66 verse 24. And they shall go out, and they will go out and look on the dead bodies of those who rebelled against me. And the worms that will eat them will not die. Why? Because that place is going to be filled with the dead bodies of those who are rebelling. And the fire that burns them will not be quenched. Now, Gehenna. Have you heard this word before? Gehenna. This is the place near the valley of Hinnom, outside the city of Israel. It is in this place that the waste particles of the city, human waste and animal waste and everything, is dumped there and burnt. So Gehenna is the place where the waste of the city, both human and animal, everything is burnt. And when the whole city waste is dumped there and burned, worms come and eat all of these wastes there. And with more human waste being dumped, worms don't die. They don't die of starvation. They keep getting food in an ongoing manner. And the more they keep these wastes there, and the fire keeps burning. In our homes, when we um, gather dry leaves that fall from the tree, we gather them in a bunch and then burn them, right? Okay, when we burn them, it burns, and then the smoke keeps coming because there is fire, but it's not that great. Majority of those things are gone, and then we clean up more dry leaves, and when we put on that, what happens? The fire starts to catch. The fire never stops burning because there is more things. There are more things that are necessary for the fire to burn. So in that dump area, more dead bodies and more human waste and animal waste and everything keeps going there. The fire has no time to stop burning. That's the idea here. That's the place where those who keep entertaining sins will go to hell. So this is how hell looks like. Hell is going to be filled with eternal fire because from the start of history till now, and even moving forward, there is going to be an ongoing supply of sinners there. Every day people are going to hell. That is why hell keeps burning and burning and burning and burning and burning. Right? So we will talk about the next few verses. Like salt is good. Everyone will be salted with fire. You read that. Salt is good. But if it loses its taste, what good it is. We'll talk about that next week or next time. Okay.